once again, dear viewers, you're watching ERi-TV. Welcome to our special edition of Open Mic. My guest for this evening is Dr. Tony Locker and his wife, Miss Isabella Maria Locker. This is not the first time Dr. Tony has been on our program, as we have had him in early 2000 was his first interview, and the second interview was in 2014. And now we are in 2025, December, and we've also paid visits to Barantu and conducted field trips during his last visit here in the country. He is a gynecologist, but more than that, he is a friend of Eritrea. Dr. Tony, please.
Thank you a lot, ERi-TV, and especially you, Raffaele, that we can be here again in this wonderful studio. Yes, it's a long history with Eritrea, so I'm very proud to be back. I'm now 77 years old, and my memory is a little bit fading, so it's good that you make an interview with me, because maybe next year I'm not so aware again. So it's okay to be here. Thank you a lot for the invitation to come to this studio and have the open mic again.
It is a pleasure from our side. Isabella, please welcome to our program.
Thank you for being here, actually for the first time, but I'm really happy to be aside of my beloved husband. And I love him actually very much because he's a lover of Eritrea and Eritrean people. This is my way.
All right, Dr. Tony, so we go directly to our line of questioning for this evening. Let's talk about your interest in Africa, and particularly in Eritrea. Let's start with Africa first.
I will start with my birth on the 25th of January 1949, in a little village, mountainous village in southern part of Switzerland, near to Italy. So my mother wished that I would be a priest. And then my father was a poor peasant, and for him it was not possible to send me to a college. You know, here in Eritrea, education is free from the kindergarten up to the colleges. In Switzerland at that time, we had to pay. So he sent me to a college, to a high school and college of the White Fathers. These were African missionaries. So the interest in Africa started at that time at the age of 10, 11, 12. And then when I did my studies in medicine, and in the 68 movement, I was interested in the ex-Portuguese colonies, their liberation, and also in the ANC liberation, anti-apartheid struggle. So then, as a student, in January 1970, I was going to a conference, student conference in Addis Ababa. And then we had the chance, we were invited to the palace there, and we shake hand to Emperor Haile Selassie. Wow. But I was not so much interested in Haile Selassie. I was more interested because during the conference I met Eritrean students. The student movement in Ethiopia started at that time, and at the end in '74, Emperor Haile was deposed. So I got in contact with students, Eritrean students and Eritrean taxi drivers at that time. So my interest started to be on the Eritrean struggle. Before I was more focused on Southern Africa, but now it started that my interest grow. And then I got in contact, of course, with Eritrean friends in Switzerland, and in July 1977, it was my first trip to Meda, to the field. I was there on the 5th of July 1977, just a few days after the first liberation of Keren. I met there Sebat Ephraim, Bruno Estefanos. We went up to elaborate estate. In the cellar there we found some Fenili wine celebrating the victory of Keren. And also when we came up to Keren, we were very thirsty because we came from the lowlands. And then a woman near Keren, she offered me a mango. So a mango, this was the fruit of the victory in Keren. And then we went up to Zagarwoki, and there you could see the outskirts of Asmara. And we were dreaming that Asmara would be soon liberated. And of course, unfortunately, then the Soviet Union was engaged on the Ethiopian side, on the Derg side, on Mengistu side. And then I came back in 78. I was in Alphabet during the strategic retreat. And this was so well organized. We saw the trucks, the lorries coming from Keren. They brought all the materials from the hospital in Keren and other things, of course. They brought it, they took it back to the field to be built up there again in the Rota base hospital. So it was a good experience to be there, also to see the different situations, the strategic retreat. And then, of course, I was here I have to mention SUKE. In 77, October 77, SUKE, Swiss Support Committee for Eritrea, was founded. And then we started to do help, to do the humanitarian work. I was here I was here with 2 trucks loaded with relief goods. We went from Switzerland, through Egypt, through the Nubian desert, to Port Sudan, and we delivered it to Eritrean Relief Association.
It must have been very difficult.
Yeah, it was difficult, but you know, I have memories only of positive things in Eritrea, even in the field. You know, the EPLF, the fighters were a big family. We felt part of this Eritrean family in the Meda. Mm-hmm. And so then we brought 3 ambulances in 82, 3 ambulances. We brought the same way to Eritrea. And then in 76, this was the first ERA Congress, Eritrean Relief Association Congress in Himbol. And I remember I was the only Zadu, the only white Zada. So a friend of mine, he translated the whole night from Tigrinya into German. So I could participate at this Congress. And then, of course, the next trip was in 1987, during the second Congress of EPLF in the field. I met, of course, the president, I met Wolde Mariam. It was good to be present at this Congress. And then again, in 88, March 88, 1988, there was another Congress of ERA, and there I had a wedding ceremony with my former wife. She passed away in the meantime. So this ERA was organized.
You got married
I got married. So this was the wedding in the field.
Isabella, what would you tell to that side of the story of Dr. Tony?
Well, when we were here, when I was for the first time here in Eritrea, we were in Massawa, and on the TV we saw the wedding ceremony of Dr. Tony and his first wife, and actually I was that impressed. I thought, well, they were sitting below the bombs during daytime, and during nighttime they were giving a celebration with flowers, with cake, with music, with joy, with dancing, and then said, well, that must be very special people that they can celebrate, although there is so much the attempt to press them down, and they say, no, we go for it, we will have a good life, we go for it. celebrating this wonderful situation that they are here to support us. I was really very amazed and think this have to be very special people.
Dr. Tony, Isabella is telling me that I've seen a bit of the clip, and they made a cake there in the field, in the Meda, for your wedding.
Yes, it was wonderful. It's not like the weddings of today. It was a modest ceremony, but with all the items which are necessary for a wedding ceremony, was with the cake and with even with flowers. You know, in the Sahel it was not so. There were not many flowers around, so they brought some flowers and the cake, and there was a cultural group playing. We were dancing. So it was a wonderful night, and in the morning the MiG came again and dropping bombs. So it was a special experience. Yes.
Indeed, indeed an experience. Okay, so Dr. Tony, I want to hear more about your personal, even the small experiences that you would mention, that you can recall for during your days in the liberation struggle, even the little ones. If you can share part of those experiences with us.
I was especially.
Yes, I mean, we've talked about, there was support. We had lorries, we had humanitarian support that was coming in through them, ambulances. But these are big things, even the little ones, because those days were difficult for everyone, and especially the liberation fighters. So tell me on that side of the story.
I remember, for example, we went to New Solomon, a refugee camp with Askalum and Kyrios at that time. So we met the children, and I mean the bombs were dropped, and even though it was a difficult time, we had wonderful chats. We got Shahi on every place, and I was especially interested in the medical department of EPLF in this the longest hospital in the world. I think it was Seberkette. It was called Seberkette Hospital or Rota Hospital. So I met the doctors. I met Dr. Michael, and it was so nice. He did operations all night, and even if the doctors were very tired, they continued to make the operation because wounded fighters were coming from the front. And Dr. Michael had an earphone, and he was hearing classical music during the operations. I was so happy with him, and Dr. Zerai and all my friends. We met each other, we chatted, and we enjoyed, even if it was the struggle and wartime, we enjoyed to make jokes, and so it was a wonderful experience in the field at all my visits. And then I remember in '88 there was the Battle of Alphabet, and then I didn't come in '89, but from far we were hoping. When we met in the Bologna Festival, every time at the end, if we said bye-bye to each other with see you next year in Asmara. This was so wonderful from the heart, see you next year in Asmara. And then in 1990, Fenkill came, and of course then the 24th of May 1991, I heard in the radio that Asmara is liberated, and I was going up to my house waving an EPLF flag and enjoying the Liberation Day.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Tony, that is indeed an experience to share with our viewers. Okay, independence came, and now we'll be talking about SUKE, the Swiss Support Committee for Eritrea. It has its roots in the Eritrean liberation struggle days, and now it has continued even well after independence. So tell us about SUKE, because now I believe we will be celebrating what next year, 2027, would be the 50th anniversary since its establishment. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about SUKE.
Yeah, SUKE started in 1977, and during the wartime we were giving humanitarian aid. I remember the 84, 85 drought in Ethiopia and Eritrea. This was very well known in Switzerland also, and we made a collection on the streets. We collected 1 million Swiss francs for the drought affected population in Eritrea. And you know, the good thing was at that time that the Eritrean diaspora people, there were not many in the 80s, few hundreds in Switzerland, and they helped us. So together Eritrean and Swiss people were standing on the streets during Christmas time, freezing, and collecting money for the drought affected people in Eritrea. Of course then after liberation it was much easier. It was easier to come and visit the liberated Eritrea, and also the Swiss government got interested in the situation in Eritrea. I remember 1993, after the referendum, the Swiss ambassador from Addis Ababa was coming to meet the president, and he wrote in his reports, it was a very good meeting with the president, Isaias Afewerki. And then the Swiss government started through SUKE to reconstruct, and especially we had in 94, 95, we had this dam construction in Areza. We had the dam construction in the Semomo Dam was constructed with, I mean, you constructed it, and especially engineer Rezane Abraha was doing a very great work. But these were bigger projects, of course, in the reconstruction of the country and the development of national building process. And then, of course, we continue to finance solar energy and a lot of other projects.
In schools?
In schools, we started the work with the Abrabata School for the Blind, the Deaf School in Keren. We also, at the beginning, 93, I'm an obstetrician, we supported the former Luigi Melotti maternity in the Mekane Huet, at that time, Mekane Huet Hospital. So, in different fields, medicine, handicapped people, big projects like in the water supply, yes.
Exactly. Okay, now I'm going to turn this question to Isabella. I want to know how SUKE secures its funds to carry out these support programs here in Eritrea.
Well, there were different phases. During wartime and when the situation was very present in the media, SUKE had funds from governmental funds, but nowadays we are getting our funds with this paper. It's called Eritrea Info. We have sponsors. We send this paper to them and give informations about our projects in Eritrea. And as we are not an NGO but a support committee, we are all working on voluntary base. So
everyone is working on a voluntary base.
Yes, yes. And we are putting together our knowledge, our capabilities. People sit together packing these materials, that we don't have costs to bring it to the post office, to send it to the people. So actually our wish is to give most of the money we gather, we collect from the people to the people of Eritrea, and that they do the best, what they think, what there is the best. This is what I learned from Dr. Tony. Don't tell them what they should do, they know exactly what they want to do, and we can give them the money to realize their projects, their ideas, their visions. So this is our point of view from SUKE. Voluntary-based work supporting the brave people of Eritrea in growing their country step by step.
And we started our information work during the struggle, of course, because there was few knowledge about the Eritrean struggle. It was somehow a little bit isolated at that time. So we started to print this Eritrea info. I remember Mama Zainab in the field. She told me, or she told us, go back to your countries and inform about the struggle, about the liberation struggle of Eritrea. So this was very moving at that time. So we continued to inform. We did articles in the media and so on. So yeah, that's the way SUKE was working at that time then.
So you've met Mama Zainab, and she told you that personally to deliver this message to the world outside, which you did. Okay, so was it easy to do that at that time, when the world outside did not want to hear about Eritrea and the cause of its liberation struggle?
Yeah, it was not easy. We tried our best, but it was at the end of, in 83, 84, this was the most difficult, or during the strategic retreat and after, it was very difficult because nobody believed that the Eritrean EPLF would survive. So at this time it was a little bit difficult to do the information work. But after 84, 86 and the coming years, when the EPLF was becoming stronger, and especially after the Battle of Alphabet, it was a little bit easier to convince, to tell the people, yes, Eritreans can survive, EPLF will be, hopefully, liberate Asmara. So, and then after liberation, of course, it was a little bit easier. And today again, it has become a little bit more difficult again, because the narrative about Eritrea in Europe and also in Switzerland it's a little bit difficult. So we have to continue our struggle to get good information about the national development process in Eritrea to the people in Switzerland.
So the fight still continues for SUKE?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about how you two met. I'm just curious there.
Well, I met Dr. Tony in 2003 and in Zurich in Switzerland, and then when we called to meet another day, he said, well, I cannot meet you now, we'll see us a few weeks later because I'm actually going to Asmara. So, and I have a little support committee and I want to meet my family in Eritrea. He always says it's my second homeland, and I'm now 20 years on his side, and I really feel that he's a white Eritrean. So it's wonderful. And at first I was teacher, doing work 100%. And in 2006 I reduced my work and started to support his work here in Eritrea. And actually for the first time I was visiting the country in 2006. And it was amazing. The world was going up, and how beautifully. Actually, for me, I'm always although today when I'm in the car, I think, wow, how do the women here get the clothes so clean, washed with this bright white? I'm not that good housewoman than the Eritreans are. And in 2007, then we had a little wedding ceremony in Sycomoro here in Eritrea. And from that time on, I was getting much more engaged, and I'm now SUKE secretary, so every information about money, about information on Eritrea is going through my hands. And I would say SUKE had 3 phases. There was humanitarian aid during wartime, then they tried to support also the buildings, the dams, the schools, and now we are in the phase where it's much more stable, and we, with our little funds, try to think with this way, not to leave the vulnerable groups behind. So our main point now is to support a little bit the orphanage in Godive. We have the project in the School of the Blind, so we are very proud to see them grow. And actually a student, she became all of a sudden blind, and this is the brilliance of Eritrean people looking out where the way is. She found the information, well, there is a school where I can learn this Braille, and actually, after 2 years, she's right back now to the college. You see, at the Kaya College, she's there again. And the Braille Printing Center in Abrabata is providing the material in Braille print that she can do the studies in this college. And this is the stories we tell in there in these papers. At the beginning, at the wartime, they informed about the situation, the napalm bombs and everything, and now we inform about the wonderful, inspired way how the Eritreans developed the situations. We were at the training center of Hakose in Keren, and there was a group just making a test. They had already done 6 days in IT basics, and as I was formerly a teacher, I was looking how he is doing the teacher. Is he calm, or is he putting pressure on the students? And it was such a soft and relaxed situation in getting tested. If you have catch the knowledge, I thought, well, this is a big step forward, and everything will go smoothly step by step, but it's amazing what they are doing. And we heard that even in this center 108 students were trained, and among them 3 Down syndrome people, 5 with autism, 5 pedo people, war disabled. So this is amazing work that Eritrea is doing. It's by itself, leaving no one behind, opening the doors that especially also these blind people that get isolated with their handicaps, get integrated into the workplace, get friends. So I'm really amazed, and these little stories we collect and bring out the world now to draw a different picture of Eritrea.
Amazing. I see one over here with the Tasfu Berhe and Dahab Hagos from Dambazawal in the area of Sarajara, is it? Yeah? Yeah. So it's a successful story which people need to know about the biogas, for instance. It's a good project. Yeah.
We are very happy because, Eritrea suffers from the climate change, and the government is very keen in installing alternative energy like the solar energy, and this is a new type of alternative energy. This is this biogas. I'm not a specialist in biogas, but we learned from Tesfu and Derab how they run this biogas in a little village of near Asmara. So it's
It's a successful project that needs to be replicated.
And well known all over the country. So you can find new alternative energy supplies here in the country, and I'm very happy that also the president is interested in these new type of alternative energies, and that Eritrea is less dependent yes, on a normal electricity. So I think it's a good way to challenge, to find alternative energies and to fight against the climate change here in Eritrea.
Okay.
I would like to add another project we really appreciate and we like very much. Actually, we are also working with the war disabled. And I always find it amazing. They do this very traditional support in giving goats, giving cows. They also have an eyeglass workshop in Asmara, beekeeping projects, and they always work together with the Ministry of Agriculture. You see, this is the Eritrean way. They say, oh, it's not about just starting something, but we want to base it on a good ground. We go to the experts, we get the information, and whenever they implement a project for SUKE, the beneficiaries get trained by the Ministry of Agriculture, so they have the knowledge how they have to go with the goats, when they have to look if there is some disease, how they do best with the bees, that they get the best results. So this is what Eritreans do. They get qualified knowledge and put it together with hard work. Sometimes it's really hard work. But they go by heart, and this is, I think, this is the best way you can change the world. Destruction is done very quickly, building up it's going slowly. Mm-hmm. So this is my idea, and perhaps I can show you.
Yeah, because I was curious about that, that slogan that you have there. Wherever you go with your heart. Yeah, and you have a story to tell us, I think, about that. Why?
Well, I think if you do things by heart, and I can feel that many Eritreans do it by heart, they will step by step become good. You know, if you just have an idea in the head and think, oh, we want to reach this because in Europe it's like that or that or that, it will become difficult. Stick to your heart, stick to the knowledge you have here, improve step by step, and you will be very good going with the heart, and you will meet the needs of the people. If you just go with the mind, you will fail, and you will not have the loving eye to see the success. You know, my husband, he is a gynecologist and obstetrician.
Difficult word.
Yeah, a difficult word. We spoke a lot of it, but I have the feeling that his view of Eritrea is like he supported women on delivery. He said, well, the most important in the delivery is the child and the mother. And then there are the midwives, and the last part is the doctor. And he was always, I was there at the delivery, he was staying calm on the backside, trusting that they will do their best. And when there was the moment he had to step in, he went in, he became very strong, and I had the feeling he's filling the room. And when the baby was out there, he was becoming soft like a mother. It was this, if something is born, you have to look with love on it. If you say, no, this is not right, and this is not right, and this is not right, and this is not right, you will destroy it. So please go with love for every little thing. And it's now, when he's at home in Switzerland, actually, I can say he's every day in former Twitter, now it's X, and he's reaching out for these little steps forward. The beautiful young Eritreans are doing, and elderly, everybody is trying to move forward just a little, and this is my picture of Dr. Tony is that in the age of 37, he decided not to have children, physical children, but he decided to have Eritrea and the Eritrean people in the heart and going for them. And he's the one that is looking with love in every little step. And for me, it's very helpful because sometimes it makes pain. You see the Eritreans invest so much and they cannot step forward as quickly as they want. And he says, stay back, stay back. Under birth, if the mother is shouting because he has pain, if you tear too much, the child will be damaged. There will be a physical problem. So stay back, get calm, go into the heart, and then let it develop step by step. And this is what I learned in the 23 years we are now together.
Great. What a wonderful, fascinating way to look at things, Dr. Tony and Isabella. Fascinating still. Let's talk about Worku, who was the focal person for SUKE, the Swiss Support Committee here in Eritrea. She has passed away now, and if let's just take this question now to give her remembrance, to give her tribute for her efforts with SUKE and with the EPLF and with the struggle for liberation. Dr. Tony.
Yes, I met Worku when she was in the field, and she was there in different departments, working there also with Hamade. And then in 2013, one Swiss NGO left the country, and then she was working with that NGO HEX. And then we were very happy that we could engage her as our representative here in Eritrea, and she was following the project. She was a wonderful person, and you met her several times also, and you have been very near. Please continue about Worku.
Well, there have been times when I was with Worku in contact every day. We met by email, and I was always asking her, Worku, how are the things in Eritrea? Where can we support? How can we do it best? And she tried to make us understand how the things in Eritrea work and how we can improve the support for Eritrea. And actually, as she was a woman and did her master in gender studies, she was very much engaged in encouraging women. Either it was asking SUKE for help for FGM project. He was very much engaged in this issue. And the other was to look that the women get money, because when women get money, they get more self-confidence, and then men and women can work smoothly together. And she was, for me, a bit, when she died, I said, Dr. Tony, it's like the sun of Eritrea has a bit fallen down, because she was, for me, somehow like Mama Eritrea. And I think she is now laughing. She was a wise woman. And she said, hold on, take your time. And she loved everyone, especially the very vulnerable people. And this was incredible. For me, it's the most interesting, wise woman I ever saw in my life. Thank you, Worku.
Dr. Tony, now let's talk about your current visit, and we will wrap up for this evening.
Yes, just to tell you something, a little joke. Eritreans like jokes. Even in the field, they were joking. So I remember when I was honorary consul, appointed an honorary consul of Eritrea to Switzerland. the chargé d'affaires, Berechet Wolde Hannes, he was telling me, no, if you are now an Eritrean, you have to go to Sawa. And then I told him, I'm not going to, I'm too old for Sawa, but I'm continuing the work here with SUKE as long as I can. So this time we came again to Eritrea, and we were very happy to see different projects. And one of the good projects is the concert of tonight with Sound of Oasis. We are very happy that this small music project we could support from SUKE, and I will enjoy, of course, this evening with the classic concert of the young Eritreans who are so engaged in this Western music. But it's good to follow the Italian tradition of in the Teatro da Smara, to play there, and I'm always very happy to be at that concert. Yes.
Isabella?
We have another Mama for the students of Sound of Oasis. It's Mama Alganesh. This is what surprisingly happens in Eritrea. If you give them little, they make out really wonderful miracle things. Last year we came, then Alganesh called us, well, you gave us 10 violins. And as I am retired now, I wanted to have a new work. And actually, she started a violin class for 10 students. And it's the girls, they meet there, and it's also this social aspect. It's not just getting taught, but this Mama Alganesh, and see how it works. She says, you have to bring the young music students to the stage, that they are proud to be there, that they will hold on, and if you come to the concert, you will see those that started last years with the violin at the beginning of the concert with the national anthem. So it's really admiring. I can't imagine. You give the violins just a little money support, and they are making such miracles out of it. We will be very proud there. We don't have children, but kindly dressed, happy students there. We are really happy to be here.
Yes, I think it's always a good time for me to be here. When I was in Istanbul airport, I thought, oh, this is a terrible place, there is too many people, and I thought this may be my last visit to Eritrea. But since I'm here in Asmara, I tell you, I will come again next year and the other years, and on 2027 we will celebrate this 50th anniversary of SUKE, the Jubilee, and we hope there will be peace, still peace in Eritrea, because the situation is not easy in the Horn of Africa. But I always, my very few words in Tigrinya is Ane nehesbi Eritrea selam yemeni yelkum out nafash.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Dr. Tony. Isabella, if there is any messages you would like to give us before we close our program?
Well, I was in a factory in Barentu, and the women there, they were trained in sewing, and they came to see us, and I was so happy knowing that these women, all under the age of 30, got an employment now, got their own money, and they were so happy. And when I asked what is important for you, they told us, well, the money and the sense of togetherness. And this is, I remember when I was here in 2014, we were here with a group. We met the UN person responsible, the
Christine Omotoni.
And she said, well, I tell you, the world is learning a lot from Eritreans. They don't tell, but they do. Go with trust, make your way. The Eritrean, a wonderful part of the 193 countries of the world, and this is my view. Every country has a special work to do for the whole world. And Eritrea is a little country, but it does, for me, with my eyes, an incredibly good job for the whole world. Thank you very much.
Dr. Tony, any final statements you'd like to make? Because you've been to Baronto now, you paid a visit to various SUKE-supported projects there.
It's with new hope. If we see the project and the people benefiting from this project, this small SUKE project, I'm proud, and it helps me to, even in my age, to continue the work in Switzerland and to come again and again to your beautiful country, my second home country. Thank you.
Dr. Tony, it is always a pleasure to have you here to share our floor with us, and as is with Isabella as well. Again, thank you for being with us here at our program. Dear viewers, that was Dr. Tony Locher and Mrs. Isabella sharing our floor for this evening. It is good night from us, and we wish them all the best in their stay here in Eritrea.
Thank you.